Well, the Chiefs get it done yesterday. You got a great weekend of college football to wrap up the regular season, and no one knows how to break it all down like Kevin Kietzman, plus some rumblings that, I don't know, where are the Royals going to be playing? Kevin, good morning. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you had a great weekend.
Hey, I sure did, Pete. Thanks for having me on.
Although I got to imagine that as you're watching your Kansas State Wildcats on Saturday night lose that Snow Bowl Farmageddon matchup to Iowa State, that one had to burn you a little bit. Did it on Saturday?
It's embarrassing. I mean, the guy's got a $47 million contract to be a college football coach, and he's a defensive specialist, and K-State's defense was insanely inept trying to stop Iowa State. And I just have one question that nobody's asked or answered, because I've never seen this before with a major college or professional game. Why didn't they clear the snow before the game? I mean, they just let it pile up, which clearly Chris Kietzman made some sort of decision. We're going to leave all this snow on the field because we think it will help us. I think he thought there will be no pass rush against his quarterback, Will Howard, so let's leave all this snow on the field. Will Howard played fine, but, man, you couldn't tackle anybody in that snow. I've never seen a field not cleared before the game, Pete. They just let it pile up for no reason.
Well, you're right, and I hadn't really thought about that. As always, Kevin's bringing something to the table that we didn't think about. You're right, it was stacking up. I'm like, was it a personnel issue? They didn't have the people to clear it? I mean, why not use halftime to do that? I was confused because you're right. By the end of the game, it was like 3-4 inches all over the field outside of the every 5-yard line.
You could take 50 frat boys sitting in the stands with 50 shovels from Ace Hardware and do it in 2 minutes.
You might be right.
It's one time across and one time back. It's 100 yards, 50 people. It takes 2 minutes.
Jeez. You're bringing up an interesting point. So you haven't heard any answers on that. No one asked that in the post game.
No. Nobody's asked it, and I simply don't understand it. And you want to talk about an unbelievably bad coaching decision, if that's what Chris Kietzman decided, was to leave the snow on the field. Wow. You want to be critical of a coach somewhere in America this week? It's Chris Kietzman. What a disaster.
How about that? All right, Kevin, on the other side, of course, you've got, before we get to the Chiefs, since we're on the college football side of things, you've got Lance Leipold capping off the first 8-win season in Kansas football since 2008. He's staying there. He's staying loyal. He's not going to Michigan State or Texas A&M or anything like that. What is the ceiling for this program under Lance Leipold?
Well, they obviously can win the Big 12. I mean, the conference, here the big question I have about the new conference beginning next year is which football program has the advantage coming in? Who's going to be the powerhouse over the next decade? And I think what Lance Leipold and Chris Kietzman at K-State and maybe Arizona and Utah, they're certainly in really good situations coming in. I think they're all looking at it like, hey, this could be our conference. We could win this thing 5 times in the next 10 years or something like that. There's a lot of schools thinking that with Oklahoma and Texas now out of the league, and I think that's it. But do I think Kansas or Kansas State's going to win a national championship? No. But if you win the Big 12, you're in the college football playoff. So to me, it's absolutely in play for KU. They can win this conference going forward, and they can be in the college football playoff, and who would have ever believed that?
That is very well said. Now, meantime, out in Columbia, when I look at this Missouri team and the job Eli Drinkwitz has done, it's been impressive. But something about him is still a little cringy, like when he says over the weekend that we're the real America's team. It's like, no, you're not. You didn't even win your division. I want to like – he's one of these guys, Kevin, I want to like him. I want to root for him. But he just makes it tough sometimes, does he not?
He's goofy. So that, I call Missouri – he's goofy. I mean, I call Missouri goofy good. They're goofy good because he's goofy. But they're good. They're really good at what they do. And this Schrader, the running back, I mean, I've got Stan Weber on my podcast today, and he has a Heisman vote. And he says when you're voting for the Heisman, you rank them 1 through 3, and he's going to consider Cody Schrader at Missouri for like the 3rd spot. I mean, this guy's the leading rusher in the SEC. He had, 220 more yards on Friday in just destroying Arkansas. They're 10-2, and if there were a college football playoff this year, Missouri would be in it. Like, you can't say enough good things, yet they are cringeworthy because the coach is goofy. But he's a harmless goofy, right? I mean, he's really hurting anybody.
Yeah, no, he's not hurting anybody. He's a harmless goofy. That's a great way to put it for Eli Drinkwitz. I'm not sure he would like that description of him, but I think it's very appropriate and it's spot on. That's what he is, Kevin.
Well, he did like a postcard moment with his family on the field after the game. I don't know if you saw it, the picture of the entire family, and he was like praising God, which I appreciate that he's faithful, but God didn't care whether Missouri or Arkansas won the game. And he's like literally thanking God for winning a football game. I'm like, I've never really understood that. Like, I'm as Christian as the next person. I just don't think God or Jesus cares who wins a football game. I could be wrong. I just don't think they do. And then he does this photo, and I'm like, I want to like that. I'm pleased that he's a Christian. He's got a beautiful family, but religion didn't have much to do with the outcome of the game. It just didn't.
Kevin Kietzman, the podcast Kevin Kietzman Has Issues. Be sure to check that out each and every day, talking not just the local regional sports scene, but also what's happening on the news side. The Chiefs, Kevin, they're down 14-0. They didn't run the ball in the first quarter for the first time in a game since 2011. Is Andy just too married to the passing game, which he's always been going back to Philadelphia? And if so, could that come back to bite this team with the way they have wide receivers who struggle to catch the ball sometimes?
Yeah, it can. And I think what Andy was doing at the start of that game and actually during the game, I think he's really good at this. The essence of coaching is figuring out your parts and how to best use them when it matters most. Well, it matters most closing out the season and into the playoffs. Rashee Rice is some weapon. And I know Chiefs fans want to hammer on the offense and blame everything on it's not the same and there's no playmakers and there's all these drops. Rashee Rice is now number 1 in the NFL in yards after catch. Like, he's the most explosive guy the Chiefs have had since Tyreek Hill. By far, he has a completely different element than any of the running backs or any of the other wide receivers. There's a player for the Niners named Deebo Samuel who's really good, and people think of Deebo Samuel as a guy that runs a lot of crossing routes and then busts big runs after, it's like a 4-yard pass, but he gains 17 yards. That's Rashee Rice, and that's how they used him. It was all crossing routes yesterday, and I think you're going to see a dose of this going forward. I think, Pete, I hate to even put too much on him. I think the Chiefs may have an absolute stud on their hands in Rashee Rice. I think he's everything that Chiefs fans are clamoring for. They're like, why didn't you draft somebody? Why didn't you trade for somebody? Why didn't you do this or that? I think Rashee Rice is the guy, man. You can't tackle him. He is fast. He's big. He's everything they want. I think they're just now figuring out how to use him.
So you think he's going to be option 1A to Travis Kelce the rest of the way? No doubt about it.
I think there's no question. He's got a big body. He can create space on short routes. He can go up and get it. And you saw him on that 40-yard touchdown yesterday. That was what? He completed the ball 4 yards downfield, and then he ran for 36. We just don't do that in the NFL. I mean, that means he's just better than the other guys, right? Mm-hmm. He went around the corner. He beat his man around the corner. Then he cut back to the middle of the field, and he cut between two safeties and was better than all of them. I mean, he's showing flashes of absolutely being a star.
Yeah, he is. So when you look at this schedule the rest of the way, do you think, Kevin, I mean, there's really one tough game left against the Bills. Is this team going to have the 1 seed in the AFC and have that home field advantage?
I mean, they don't play a team the rest of the way that's currently in the playoffs. So, I mean, they're closing out the season with all these games, including the Raiders yesterday. All these games are against teams that are not in the playoffs. Now, some of them could qualify. Buffalo could get hot and make the playoffs. Buffalo just seems to know how to lose. I mean, they proved that again. The Packers played well last week, but do you really think the Chiefs should win that game? You're going to Green Bay. You ought to be able to beat that team. The Chiefs defense is so good right now, Pete. They're in every single game. And the way to beat the Chiefs in the past has been go score 35 on them and outscore Patrick Mahomes. Well, that's gone. That's gone. I mean, the Raiders looked really good early. The Chiefs went on a 31-3 run yesterday after the Raiders went on top 14-0. Well, nobody does that. This defense figured it out, and they were outstanding again, giving up 17 points. You're not going to beat the Chiefs with 17 points. You're just not.
You're not. And Les, I mean, do you think Steve Spagnuolo gets enough credit for the job that he's done?
No, and we probably aren't giving enough to the scouting staff. You know, all these young guys on defense have been drafted over the last couple of years. They're cheap players on cheap contracts because they're paying all this money to Mahomes and some of these other guys. These are young players, you know, growing up right before our eyes. They look like veterans now. They know what they're doing. And Nick Bolton's been out, and he's such a big part of this defense. He'll be back here in a couple of weeks. They're only going to get better. Karlaftis is turning into a sack machine. I mean, everybody they've drafted, McDuffie is like one of the most electrifying defensive players in the NFL. I mean, they've got some studs over there, Pete, and they're paying them nothing. They're all on first contracts. It's remarkable what this defense could be going forward.
It's well said. And I got a minute, Kevin, but we haven't talked, I don't think, since this third option came up for the Royals at the old KC Star building downtown. Do you love it or hate it?
I mean, if you're going to put it somewhere, that seems like the best place. I don't like that parking lot called East Village. And I love the area in North Kansas City, but there's no skyline or downtown element to that.
Yeah.
Although it is a great spot for a ballpark in North Kansas City. If you're going to put it where the Star Building is, at least you're combining everything. Everything's all right there together. I don't hate the idea of covering the 670 underpass and making a park out of that or something unique for Kansas City. If you had money to build all that, that'd be kind of cool. But I keep saying this every time it comes up. They don't have the money, and the voters ain't voting for nothing right now, okay? People are tired of government spending money. They're not going to pass it. So they can come up with all the plans they want. The voters don't want it. Nobody wants to spend money right now, Pete. We're all broke. Biden broke all of us.
He's Kevin Kietzman, but his podcast is on fire. I know that. And he's got Stan Weber on today. Download it. Kevin Kietzman Has Issues. Always great to have you on, Kevin. Have a great week, man. Thanks for being here.
Pete, thanks so much, man. Appreciate being on.
You as well. That is good stuff. Kevin Kietzman, always great to have him on the show on KCMO Talk Radio.